Everyone, welcome to our final episode of the KOGA Summer Webinar Series. My name is Emily Childers, and I'm the Association Manager for KOGA. I'd like to thank you all so much for joining us today. Today, we will hear from Wolfe Pak Software's Leon Busch and Kristy Strickland. Before we begin, I would like to thank our webinar sponsors, specifically Stacy Dover and Michael Nelligan with Country Mark, who've been a huge help with the platform and presentations over the webinar series. Thank you to Country Mark and Ergon, who have sponsored the webinar series, as well as the following sponsors for their contributions: AquaClear Inc., Bingham Greenbaum Doll, Bitco, Blackridge Resource Partners, Britannia, Country Mark, Cumberland Valley Resources, Diversified Gas and Oil Company, InLink Midstream, Ergon, Hughes Land, Phil Brown Insurance, Reliance Well Service, Steptoe and Johnson, and Wyatt Terry Homes. Past episodes can be viewed on our website, kyoilgas.org/summer series. And at this time, I'd also like to remind you that anytime throughout the presentation, you're welcome to ask questions. If you post them on the right-hand side of your chat, we will field those and ask them at the end. At this time, I will introduce Leon Busch and Kristy Strickland with Wolfe Pak. Leon is the Chief Operating Officer with Wolfe Pak Software. He joined Wolfe Pak's leadership team in February, following the company's acquisition of DocView, where he was COO, leading the sales and marketing, professional services, and client services team for 5 years. Prior to that, Leon was Vice President and General Manager of the Procure to Pay P2P Open Invoice product at Automatic Data Processing. He was an early employee at the startup of SourceNet Solutions, which provided outsourced services to large corporations. Leon worked for SourceNet for 14 years in various positions. Kristy Strickland is Wolfe Pak Software Solutions Consultant Manager, responsible for helping prospective and existing clients evaluate and understand the value of Wolfe Pak. At Wolfe Pak, she has been part of the technical support team, a team lead, subject matter expert, and overall customer success manager until transitioning into her current role. Prior to Wolfe Pak, she spent a number of years as a technology trainer and managing various teams at her alma mater, Abilene Christian University, where she received her bachelor's and BA in management. Leon and Kristy, I will now turn it over to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Emily. And good afternoon, everyone. This is Leon Busch, Chief Operating Officer here at Wolfe Pak. Thank you for the opportunity to present today. Very excited to have this opportunity and looking forward to walking you through an overview of Wolfe Pak Software for the next 45 to 60 minutes. We'll certainly do our best to move through our presentation and demonstration and leave time for questions at the end. So please submit your questions as we're going through. We'll compile those and do our best to work through those questions at the end of the presentation. From an agenda perspective today, what we'll do, we'll just spend a few minutes going through a high-level overview of Wolfe Pak Software for the folks that may not be that familiar with Wolfe Pak. We'll walk through some best practices for reporting and run statements. We'll speak to data entry and some of the automation that we have within the Wolfe Pak software suite when it comes to data entry, and then spend some time speaking about accounting and inventory systems. From a Wolfe Pak perspective, has been in business since 1986, and we like to say that our software is focused on business automation for the oil and gas industry. Software that has been built by oil and gas experts in trying to infuse our expertise into the software that we provide to our clientele. Some of the old theories and strategies of the Wolfe Pak software, and we'll speak to this as we go through the presentation and the demonstration, is to deliver software that focuses on efficiency and effectiveness, trying to assist our clients with automation of business processes, but then also thoughtfully thinking about the end user experience and thinking always with the end user in mind. How do we make that end user as effective and as efficient as possible, and do that in a manner that allows for automation of business processes, both inside of our clients' organizations, but then also working with other organizations that our clients do business with. So from a Wolfpack perspective, as I mentioned, Wolfpack was started in 1986, so 35 years of industry expertise, experience into an integrated product suite. We have market-leading software. We continue to innovate that software with new releases on a recurring basis, as well as always looking at driving what I like to call frictionless integrations with other platforms that you may be using to manage your business. From a Wolfpack perspective, we're very proud to say that we have over 1,900 customers that are using the software to manage their businesses with a 95+% retention rate. So our clients use the software for their critical business processes, for managing their businesses, and they find that the Wolfpack software not only meets their expectations, but exceeds their expectations, not only with what they have, but also with Wolfpack's ability to continue to innovate around the software suite. Obviously, the majority of that innovation, quite frankly, comes from direct feedback from our clients with regards to how they're using the software, how they're trying to manage their businesses, and what we can do to make that software work better for our clients. Wolfpack has organizations using the software in multiple segments of the oil and gas industry. So we have clients using Wolfpack in the upstream segment, midstream, oil field services, as well as the investor segment. And from an overall integration automation suite, because of the breadth of the installed client base at Wolfpack, that installed client base, including upstream, midstream, oil field services, and investors, we have specific modules within the overall product that are tailored towards specific businesses, including also land and property acquisition. So each one of those modules or groups of modules is focused on delivering functionality for the client based on their specific business need. But I can also tell you that because the platform is holistic, there's the ability in the management of the data across modules or across business processes is elegant, it's frictionless. There's continuity of data throughout the Wolfpack Business Automation Suite. We're really focused on eliminating double data entry. We're focused on making sure that the data flows seamlessly from one critical business process to the next, so that each business process uniquely is effective and efficient, but then the holistic management of the organization works as well as possible. The other thing we're really focused on here at Wolfpack is not only looking inside the four walls of our clients, but then looking at the partners. We like to use terminology called a counterparty. So a counterparty is, an entity that our clients do business with or interact with. How do we make that interaction effective and efficient? How do we make sure that the flow of information outside of the four walls of our client is not only vitally secure and protected, but also efficient, effective, and accurate for their counterparties? So we're always focused on trying to engage our clients, assist our clients in the engagement with their counterparties in the sharing of critical business information to not only drive efficiency and effectiveness for our clients, but also drive effectiveness for their critical counterparties. And what we see very quickly is that automation suite drives efficiency not only for our client, but for the entire ecosystem, if you will, of the counterparties that our clients are doing business with. We continue to focus on that concept within the Wolfpack Automation Suite. And that's one of the things that myself and Kristy will speak to today is looking at, how does Wolfpack help our client personnel, our clients manage their businesses, but then also extend that reach out to their critical counterparties to try to effectively help those organizations as well with the management of critical business data overall throughout the course of a month or a year. Kristy, please take it away.
Opportunity to talk to you today. So one of the things that we're going to talk about is the electronic operator statements. And so as your first purchaser is sending you information, the operator run statements are going to give you a good recap of those tickets that the purchaser's paying you for. And so we're going to show you here in a little bit how that run statement can show you the barrels, the contract price, any deductions that might take away from that contract price. And then we're going to also talk about how those statements can easily be emailed to you, either in an Excel format or a PDF format. The other thing about having your purchaser and yourself using the same software is the benefit of sharing that data. So we've got a system called WolfNet that allows you to take that information from the purchaser. They'll send it to you through our FTP secured website, and you just download it and post it. And so there's a lot of manual entry that doesn't need to happen anymore, and it also will reduce the amount of duplicate entries. So we're very excited about that. And as operators, just to think about that, you can also send your data to your owners or investors the same way the purchasers would send that information to you. So we're going to take a look at a few best practices. We're going to talk about the operator run statements. Like I said before, we're going to talk about those deductions and what those mean. We're also going to talk about the importance of strapping your tanks to get a more accurate volume measurement for those. And then we'll talk a little bit about state reporting. We'll talk about accruing sales, automatic check stub entries, and then investor interface. These are all tools that can help you as an operator or purchasers come together to share that data to minimize that data entry for you. Okay, so I think what I'll do is show you one of these operator run statements. Share my screen. I think everybody can see that. This is our first purchaser module in Wolfe Pak. And what I'm going to show you is the operator run statement. These statements take the tickets that are in first purchaser that your first purchaser would pay you for. So I'm going to run this real quick. So it's going to go through the tickets that I have imported in for us to take a look at. So let me zoom in a little bit for you to see this operator run statement. This one is for our black operating company. This is just an example. And as we go through, you'll see the tickets broken out by property. You'll see the ticket number, if there's any split loads, the date that those tickets came in, the tank that the crude was picked up from, and then specific information about that ticket. So if there was BS&W, basic sediment and waterment, that percentage will be listed on your run statement. The gravity, API gravity will be listed as well, because those are important when you're looking at the price per barrel. There are situations where if your BS&W is very high, then the quality of the crude is low and you're not going to be paid as much for it. Same with our gravity. If the gravity is low, then the oil is going to be more dense and it's going to be higher. And so the heavier the oil, the more dense it is and the more it costs to process that oil. So the higher the API, the better the price on the oil is going to be. And so there may be situations where you have a gravity scale put on your contract that says If it's below this amount, we're going to add information. If it's above this amount, then we may take away, or so on. So then you've got the total number of barrels and the price that it comes down to after you see the API gravity deductions or your BS&W deductions. And then, of course, you'll have your gross value at the bottom. So these run statements are important so that you can double check the tickets that come in to make sure you're being paid for all of those tickets that you have delivered to that first person. So again, just when we're talking about deductions, when you're looking at your BS&W and gravity, those gravity scales can be applied to the price contract. And so again, the lower the API gravity is, the better quality of oil you have. You may add to your price contract. The higher the API gravity is, the denser the oil is. And so they may take away from that price contract. And again, BS&W, the higher it is, the more it can affect the quality of your oil. The sulfur content, sometimes you'll see that. I haven't seen it very often, but if there is high sulfur content, that makes the crude sour and it makes it a little bit harder to process through the refineries. Now, there may be other deductions that may apply to your price contract. Again, that's between you and your first purchaser, but it could have rough road fees. It could have specific property deductions, things like that. So those are going to be things that you'll want to understand with your first purchaser. All of these are going to result in a difference between your the price that you're expecting and the price that you get. And so let's just be aware of things that go on with the tickets. Another thing that is very important when it comes to calculating the barrels that come through is your tank strappings. I'm going to take a look at a couple of these just to kind of give you an idea. So on this one, I've just done one simple tank strapping. I just know the height and maybe the volume of that. It's a 210 barrel tank. So if I just put in one strapping to calculate the barrels per increment on this particular tank, that the barrels per increment is going to be a little bit different on one strap versus if I have several. So I've got another tank that I set up here. Let's see. I'll show you the difference between the two. You'll see this one has gone out. They've done 3 strappings on the tank. So as you're thinking about a cylinder tank, you know, the volume is going to be different if someone backed into it and there's a big dent into it or something like that. And so the more accurate tank strappings you can have on a particular tank, the better it's going to be because it'll reflect a better volume at the bottom. So if we were to take these 2 tanks, I want to show you how this compares to dollars. If I go into run tickets, I've got a couple of tickets in here that I put in. So if we look at this particular ticket is on a regular tank, the one that had the 3 tank strappings, to show more accurate volume. You'll see that the barrels down here at the bottom show 176 barrels, and then it's got a gross amount of 7,600. But if I show you a ticket that's using a tank with just one generic strap, then you'll see quite a bit of difference. So I'm using the tank 1 that I set up with just that one generic tank strapping. Because we've got one tank strapping, it difference the gross barrels down here at the bottom, and it shows 155. There's some calculations that happen behind the scenes in Wolfe Pak that take the API gravity, the total barrels, and the tank strappings to calculate that gross and net barrel. And so the difference here is between $7,600 and $6,700. Now, when the oil prices were real low, may not have made that big of a difference, but as we expect oil prices to rise, tank strappings are going to be a lot more important to you in the long run. So some of the other things that we wanted to talk a little bit about was state reporting. We've got some different reports that's going to help you out. We at Wolfe Pak do want to take care of the customers, and the state and federal reports as a high priority. And so if there's reports that you all are needing, then we do send that up to our development team. But in our reports, we do have in our first purchaser module, we have several different reports here that you can choose from that take the actual federal or state form, and then we populate it with the data that's been put into Wolfe Pak. So T1 report, and Louisiana R2, Part 2 report, North Dakota reports, Arkansas and Texas. These are all production-based reports. If I go into another one of our companies, I'll show you some others. As operators, we have reports for severance tax. So if you are responsible for paying the state on that severance tax for the oil that you have picked up, then we do have Texas, Kansas, we do have Kentucky severance tax reports, but a variety of other types of reports that are available. And again, we just take that state form and plug in your data. And then in some cases, like in the Texas state, you have the ability to file that electronically. So all of those would make it very easy for you to do. Some of the other ones here, here's state or federal reports. We have backup withholding reports. New Mexico's a little special because they've got some different taxes for each county that they have. So we do have those. Wyoming, the ONRR report. And then we've got some other operator type tax report. And so you'll see the Kentucky property tax return for gas and the Kentucky property tax return for oil. And we just developed that over the last year or so. So we're excited about that. It's very easy to run those types of reports. It's just a click and you can go on. Accruing sales. So sometimes this is important when you are trying to forecast your budget. Maybe you're trying to figure out what revenue you're expecting to come in before you actually pay out the actual amounts. And so in Wolfe Pak, we have a module called accruals that will help you with that. In accruals, you can set up definitions based on the dollar amount or quantity. So if you want to do accruals based on your barrels that you're accepting, then you can do that. So in this particular case, we're using the 100% oil amount for the oil, and then we put in the general ledger account where those entries have been made. This is where you can base it on production date or the effective date, and then the ability to base it off of a quantity or an amount. Now, if you base it on a quantity, you do have the option of putting in a price index so that it could calculate a dollar amount based on the quantities. But if you want real dollars that have been posted to create that accrual from, you can certainly do that. Lots of other different options here, but that is a particular example. Your price index can be set up here. Price index, and then you can have it by month if you wanted to, or just whenever you have an update for that particular index. And then to create those entries, I'm going to put in some dates here. I'm going to do a range of 3 months. Pick my description. I'm going to put the date of the entry. So if I want to accrue April's amount, I can do that. data. So what you'll see here is if I come in here, I can filter out the datas to get the zeros out because I don't need to make accruals on the zeros. But I can very easily make an accrual on an average of the 3 months that I've put up here at the top. I can include all, clicking on those, and then I can automatically post those. It does it for you. So then the next month when the actual numbers come in, then you would be able to reverse those accruals or do even partial reversals of those. Load those particular amounts. You'll see the accrued amount. You'll see the actual amounts that come in and are posted, and then you can make those changes if you need to. So here's my reversal amount, reversal quantities. If I needed to make any adjustments, I could just simply click on those numbers and change the numbers if I need to. And then again, just automatically posting those entries, generating them. And so the ability to use accruals really can just benefit you. Just to give you a better idea of the income versus the debt that you have in your system, because you can do accruals on your LOE expenses as well. So accruals can assist in your forecasting perspective in that it allows a company to understand the revenue that's expected versus the revenue that you're going to have to pay out before the distribution happens. And so accruals can be created, again, using just average amounts. You can use 3 months, 6 months, 1 month, however you want to define that. And then you can also base it on a quantity or a dollar amount. And then, of course, those definitions can be set up however you need to set it according to your company's practices. Another thing that we wanted to talk about was the check stub entry. That's one of the biggest things that our purchasers to operators have to do, and then our operators to our owners and investors to do. And so I wanted to kind of show you a couple of different ways that we can get that revenue transferred from one to the other. Obviously, you can manually enter in check stub. We can go into the stub and manually put it in for each property. We have the barrels, the gross, taxes, net, but according to the purchaser, you can set up the deductions or the stub line items however you need to. So that's one way. If your purchaser can send you a CDEX file, we can easily import that in. Just grab the file, put the date in, and then we've got some accounts that you would put in and just very easily post that information in. And those CDEX files can have hundreds of wells on them, depending on how much you are investing in. We also have the ability to import an Excel file. So if your purchaser or the person you're doing business with comes and sends you an Excel file of all the data, then you would just send that Excel file into a format that's required by Wolfe Pak and just import it right in. And the last one that we talked about a little bit is exciting if both parties are using Wolfe Pak, is we use kind of an internal hub, like a communication hub, where we call it WolfNet, where the purchaser can set it up or the operator set it up for the owners or investors. You set it up and you download their specific data, either the operator's share or the operator's, the 100% numbers. You can get all of that. And once you get the purchaser to download that information in, on the operator's side, you set up a cross-reference between your properties and the purchaser property numbers, and it downloads it. There's a one-time setup, but it downloads that information from our secured FTP side, and then you just post it. There's no manual entry. So if you've got hundreds of wells, this will save you a lot of time. We've got a lot of clients that use this that take the information from the first purchaser. When it's downloaded, they just send it in to Wolfpack and then post it. So the same thing applies for the operator when you're using, when your owners or investors are using Wolfpack. You can do the same thing. You can set it up to send them specific information, you know, their proportional share, and then they can import it themselves. So we do like to automate those transactions to make it easier for you, because I don't know if y'all are like us here at Wolfpack, but there always seems to be a little bit more work than there are people that can do it. And so we are all about trying to make you more efficient, for sure. And then one last thing that I would like to take a look at, just to kind of show you, is in our revenue billing module. So as operators, if you're running those revenue distributions, we have, we do have the investor interface module. So right here, I wanted to show you a couple of just different examples. So this one is an example of our WolfNet, where one Wolfpack user client is sharing data with another Wolfpack user client. And so if those of you who are doing business with Country Mart and use Wolfpack, you can certainly utilize this WolfNet option. But basically what it takes is those revenue billing type entries, and it sends you those 100% numbers where you can do new revenue distributions or JIB distributions. You just pick what Wolfpack license account that you want to send it to, and it will send it. Another example would be like if I, as an operator, needed to send it to another operator to do a second level distribution. This particular one would be able to send revenue billing entries. You can utilize Energy Link or CDEX files. I'll just show you a couple of these different options. So CDEX files here, if you were to select that, it would create a CDEX format or an Energy Link file, for an example, that you could take and then upload it into a portal if you needed to do that. The other options would be to send those WolfNet entries, the 100% numbers, revenue and billing side, to the operator or to your investors or another operator. Or you can send just the check stub piece. So if I'm an operator and I need to share that information with an investor or an owner that use Wolfpack, then I can send their proportional share, just their entries, over into WolfNet for them to download. And then we also have the ability to create a full revenue file. Basically would be sent into Energy Link. You would see the revenue and the expense side of the house. And then if you have a situation where I'm an operator, where I'm also having to do some distributions in some sister companies, then I can use the Wolfpack Investor GL, where I can send revenue and billing type entries at the 100% level to these sister companies to do second distributions. And so that's been very helpful as well. But all of these pieces, again, are supposed to help you save some time and become a little bit more efficient in trying to share the data with either sister companies or entities that your company owns or other Wolfpack clients that can help. Okay. So what I'll do is open up questions to Leon and myself, or maybe Stacy, if you want to jump in and answer some, you're welcome to do that as well.
Thank you, Kristy, so much, and Leon. We did have a few questions come in, and I'll go run through those right now. One was, are there any Kentucky state reports in development today?
Well, we just finished several. I can show you the ones that we've got right now. And then if there's others that you're needing, I just need to know what they are. So in revenue billing, if I go into reports, there's the Kentucky severance tax report that we've already done. It's out there. And then we also have the Kentucky property tax return for gas and for oil. So both of those are available. Okay. Let me look and see if we have one over here in first purchase. So I think those are the main three that we've done. We got those finished last year. Is there particular ones that you're looking for?
They didn't post a particular one, but maybe now that they know where to find them, that's a good start.
Great.
Let's see. Second question, what are common deductions on price paid for a barrel of oil?
Okay. Common deductions is similar to what we've kind of talked about. So if there's a high BS&W percentage, if there are gravity scale adjustments, I can show you what that would look like. So in Wolfe Pak, we have the ability to put in some gravity scales. So you can say, if the gravity is between this and 39.9, then I'm going to do this. Or if the gravity is above 45.1 to, this is kind of a big range here, 45.1 to 99.9, then I might do something a little bit different. As those tickets are pulled into Wolfe Pak, it recognizes the gravity and it looks at the price contract that that property is under to see what scale to use, and Wolfe Pak will automatically do those deductions for you. And so that's one. BS&W kind of works the same way. So if it's 0 through 45.1, I guess that's kind of a lot. For percentage wise, then you can do something, but you can set up these scales. And then on the price contract themselves, if I come over here, let me show you one. This particular one is using a daily price and the price index of 3, but I've applied the BS&W scale A to this one. So any tickets that come in using this price contract, it's going to take a look at that BS&W percentage and make a deduction accordingly. Here's one that has the gravity scale and the BS&W. So if the ticket comes in with the gravity scale at a certain amount, it could deduct some, or the BS&W. If it's too high, you might get a deduction that way. There's also some places where you might, if I go into price contract, there's also ways to put in adjustments at a price contract level. And so that would be an agreement between you and your purchaser. But there can also be a property adjustment. So if there's a rough road, you know, if you as an operator, you know, you're having to go down this rough road, there may be a price adjustment at the property level to adjust that. Does that answer the question?
Let's see. Another question. For producers, are there common reports that account for bottoms in the tank on a given day?
Let's see. Let me think about that one.
And real quick, while Kristy's thinking about that, just back to the first question, we have a team of resources on the Wolfe Pak side that own the responsibility of keeping up with the state regulatory reporting, as we know that changes on a regular basis, and or adding new reports as they come in from our various installed clients. You know, a good example of that, somewhat related, is we know that there's a new 1099 for working interest coming out. I believe it's 1099 NEC. So the team's already efforting that in anticipation of end of year activity. So there's a constant monitoring of those types of things done by Wolfe Pak on behalf of our clients to ensure that any of the regulatory reporting that's inherited or enabled in the system is current and accurate, and or any new reports that are requested are actioned very quickly so our clients can take advantage of that.
Thank you, Leon. So to answer the question, I think one thing that we could do is utilize the run ticket view reports here in Wolfe Pak. these are kind of like my favorite reports because they're ad hoc type reports. You can put in the cycle month and year, but you can use this little, I've heard people call it a hamburger icon, but I like to think of it as like a little outline icon. But we do have some options here that you can pull in if you're utilizing those particular fields. And if you do, you can come in here and select those. I don't know if I have any data that have those bottom readings on them, but we're going to just take a look. No. But if you do, then you would have the tickets lining up here. You can filter by any one of these columns. And as you get it the way you want to, you can either save the particular view so that you can run it later, or you can right click and export it to Excel to do further analysis if you need to do that. But as far as tank bottoms go, I don't know of off the top of my head some other reports that might help. Stacy or some of those on the call that have done, they may have a little bit better understanding about that too.
Okay, and then our last question was, what does CDEX stand for?
Oh, it's a
it's check data exchange, but it's a standard known in the industry, CDEX, part of PIDEX, which is the Petroleum Industry Data Exchange Framework that tries to govern the exchange of data between oil and gas related entities and produce or provide a standard of transmission of data. So CDEX has been around for quite some time, and it kind of has it's kind of like it's taken a life of its own where it's a CDEX file, and that's how people just refer to it. But it's really for the management or the exchange of check data between entities.
Okay, and then I'm sorry, I had one more come through that says,
Sure.
Can operators run statements be sent annually, or is it only monthly?
Well, that is going to be up to them and the first purchasers. Typically, first purchasers are going to send monthly operator run statements. It's completely up to them. But as you, as an operator, get the information into your system, you could certainly get that information yourself based on some of the reports that we have here. So the operator run statements would show you that check detail. And so what you could do as an operator is, you know, all that information is being pulled through check stub from what you're getting from your first purchaser. And so as an operator, you can go into revenue billing or even into check stub. There's a couple of different ways to do that. But in revenue billing, there's some reports here that you can do property level TAC reports that will show the volumes, the dollar amounts that were paid and things like that. And then for your check stub option here, we have property history and purchaser history. And so I think that these two TAC reports would be beneficial.
And I just had one more pop in since we've got a little bit of time here. Will you be able to show the land functions of the software?
Sure. Let me get over here into my other company. So our Wolfe Pak land is pretty basic, but it does have a little bit of information. There we are. So in our land system, it basically maps it out. The first thing you would do is put in a prospect. The prospect is just a geographic location. So I've got some clients that will do, you know, kind of a quarter of a state, or they might do a county, or it might be just a project kind of area. And so it just depends on how you need. But you create those prospects, you create the tracts. And so these could be 40 acre tracts or 320 acre tracts, however you need to be. But you create the tract IDs. You can add the owners that have the mineral percentage or that mineral interest on that tract and what their percentages are. You might have some landowners that have just the surface level percentage that you can adjust here as well. And then it'll automatically calculate those surface acres based on the gross acres that they're defined at the top. And once you've got the tract selected or added in, you can create the contracts, or some people call them leases. And so once you create those contracts, you can put in the date and information on that contract. You can put in the acreage, which would include the tracts that you've set up. So a lot of times our leases will include more than, and so you would put those in. It'll give you the total acres at the bottom. You can even do the ownership. So if they've got mineral rights, surface rights, or even royalty, you can put those in and then see that royalty interest or the working interest. There's special provisions. So if there's a Q clause or anything like that in your lease, you can put that into the contract. We've got to-do items, basically just reminder files. So if I need to go check the cattle guard at that property, or if I need to lay gravel, I can do that and have reminders to do that. On the leases, there are contracts. There's also payment obligations. So if you're doing bonus payments, delay rental payments, easement payments, you can certainly do that. And with Wolfe Pak Land, it does connect to our accounts payable module. So you can select those payments, have it automatically go to AP. It'll create the invoice for you. You make the payment, and then those payments are adjusted here in Land, and you can see when the check's cleared, if they're still outstanding, if you do your bank reconciliations here in Wolfe Pak. And then, of course, we've got just different reports that we have. So gross acreage status reports. We've got tract reports, NRI type reports. And then my favorite view type reports where you can just make your own. But overall, that's what happens is you can keep track of the different contracts and the ownerships on that contract and make payments accordingly.
Great. We didn't have any other questions come through. So Kristy or Leon, do you have any closing thoughts or comments you want to make?
Yeah, please. So thank you, Emily. Just again, thank you very much for the time. Hopefully you found this beneficial, just to reiterate some of the comments, information that Kristy and myself have shared. So really number one is trying to introduce software to the oil and gas industry to drive, effective capture of all this critical information that is vital to the organizations in our industry, and doing that in an efficient manner. But then also, as Kristy, I believe, it demonstrated very well, sharing that information and driving reconciliation of information between yourself and your important counterparties, so that reconciliation can be done systemically if possible, or at least more efficiently than maybe we're doing it today, because we're using manual processes to reconcile. And so really focused on, from a Wolfe Pak perspective, of engaging with our clients and then extending that engagement to their counterparties to look at ways to make all of those critical business processes more efficient and drive efficiency through the exchange of that data, ultimately driving towards more accurate information being shared amongst organizations, easier reconciliation, and more efficiency for all organizations involved in the process.
Okay, great. Kristy, did you want to add anything?
No, I just appreciate the opportunity to speak to all of you. I did see another question come up about the land functions and GIS mapping, and so I'll just address that real quick. We have Wolfe Pak Land that I just showed you, and then we have Impro that does include a GIS mapping. And so there's two different softwares that we have that will take care of that. But I do appreciate the opportunity to be with all of you today. We're here to help answer any questions that you might have, or if we've sparked some interest, you can just send an email over to us and we'll make sure we get it taken care of.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much for your time. I do just want to thank our sponsors one more time, Country Mark and Ergon, for sponsoring the webinar series, as well as AquaClear, Bingham Greenbaum Doll, Pitco, Black Ridge Resource Partners, Britannia, Country Mark, Cumberland Valley Resources, Diversified Gas and Oil, InLink, Midstream, Ergon, Hughes Land, Phil Brown Insurance, Reliance Well Service, Steptoe and Johnson, and Wyatt Tarrant Combs. We hope you've enjoyed the summer webinar series, and thank you everyone for tuning in today.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.